Hi, everybody. I can see you all flooding to the chat right now. There we go, attendees. Who have we got? Let's use those good old-fashioned radio shout-outs, but we'll do it on Zoom because 2021. Abigail Hole, I can see you out there. Hello. Benjamin Smith. Bradley Taylor. Carrie, what's good? Callum, nice to see you here. Chad Norton, hi. Oh my gosh, there's so many of you. 120 locked in for the gaming careers chat right now. We love to see that. My name's Jack, by the way, everyone. Nice to meet you all as you come into the Zoom. If you listen to Radio 1, you'll find me 10 p.m. till midnight, Monday to Thursday. I do a show called Future Artists. There's the Radio 1 indie show as well on a Thursday night, which kind of hits differently. Love that show. Getting your weekend started alternative music style. And also just obsessive with games, essentially. So I feel right at home with you lot right now. And I think one of the good things about this session is you are not just going to hear from people who are on the perhaps personality side of things. You are going to hear plenty from people who are behind the scenes as well, which I think is a huge insight and kind of correlates to radio a little bit as well. Because I remember when I first started like wanting to get into radio, I was like, oh, it's just like presenters and producers. But no, there's so much more stuff that goes into it. So much more exciting stuff that goes into it. Like what we're doing right now, for example. Shout out Roz, shout out Sammy. So yeah, we're going to get all the behind the scenes stuff. So thank you guys for being here. Appreciate your energy. Appreciate you being here. Just a heads up in case you enjoy what you're doing and you want to go and do more of these. Maybe whet your appetite elsewhere in other industries. There's stuff on fashion. There's stuff on journalism, film, TV, music production. There's loads going on for Big Weekend Connects. So yeah, if you fancy it, Radio 1 website, you guys know where to go. You got that. All right. Should we do this then? Let's get our panelists in and introduce everyone. So first of all, if you just joined us and you didn't hear me say my name is Jack Saunders, welcome to the Gaming Careers Big Weekend Connects chat. I'm usually hosting Future Artists or the Radio 1 Indie Show on Radio 1, 10 p.m. until midnight. Behind me is a DIY experience that I had during lockdown. I put together this whole cabinet. Don't know why I'm telling you this. It's probably just because I'm proud of it and I haven't been able to show anyone yet. You guys are literally the first people. I made this during lockdown and it's got everything from a pair of nunchucks to my my grandma's old crockery in it. So they're not my grandma's nunchucks though, so don't worry about that. She wasn't that vicious. Okay, let's get everyone in. So 4 people on our panel today. As I said, going to be everyone from the kind of face personality side to the behind the scenes stuff as well. Let's start with our man, Alex Harris, everyone, creative director of London Esports. Alex, hello.
Hello. Hey, Jack.
Look at that shirt, everyone. Wow. Alex, is that your finest shirt that you own in your wardrobe?
I'm dressed to impress today.
Yes, you are, sir. Yes, you are. I feel like we've gone best at the start. Maybe. We don't know. We'll find out what everyone else is wearing. Up next is Elves the Witch. Everyone, Els is a YouTube gamer and has over 200,000 subscribers. She's a big deal, everyone. What's up, Els?
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. All right.
Welcome along.
I love Alex's shirt as well, I was going to say. Really big fan.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be the only ones complimenting you on that shirt, Alex. I think you're going to get that from everyone coming through. So get ready for that. We've also got Leah Mwanga-Magoye, senior narrative designer at Fusebox, everyone. What's up, Leia?
Hey, yes, also a fan of Alex's shirt. I feel very, very impressed. Very muted tones over here, but yes.
Alex, is that your best shirt or are there more like that?
It's the loudest one, but there's a few like that.
Okay, it's good to hear. It's good to hear. And last but not least, Yinsu Collins, everyone, award-winning esports journalist for Upcomer. Hi, Yinsu.
Hello. I also like Alex's shirt, so I decided to go with a more neutral palette, so I don't show him up a bit. You know, this is his moment. We gotta let him live it.
All about Alex today, everybody. All about Alex. Okay, so before we get going, let me let you know that you guys get chances to ask questions as well. Okay, so I'm going to go through and ask our panelists a few different questions and give you guys an insight into what they do, how they got there, their experiences so far, so you can get a real kind of handle on that. But at the end, you guys are going to get to ask questions. So if you feel anything come up during the conversations, or maybe you've got some already in your head, if you just submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom meeting, and then we'll be able to hopefully ask them at the end. Okay. Let's start with, let's just start with the intro, shall we? Let's find out what everyone does. Alex, let's start with you. Talk to us about, I don't know, the day-to-day responsibilities of perhaps being a creative director, because London Esports is quite a new organisation, isn't it?
Yeah. London Esports is, I guess for me, a super exciting project to be a part of because it's very much sort of on the up. And my role as creative director is quite nice because I get to sort of use both halves of my brain, if that makes any sense. Sort of half of my role is very sort of working with a sort of fantastic creative team, lots of great illustrators, graphics designers, video editors, and making just sort of great content that our fans can see and sort of enjoy across social media. And then the other half of my sort of role is a lot more businessy, shall we say, a lot of sort of building pitch decks, heading into meetings, pitching sponsors. And I sort of really enjoy being able to sort of use sort of creative skills, but also at the same time, getting quite sort of stuck in with the more sort of businessy side of things.
Okay, this is good. Sounds like Alex is a good person to have on the panel today. Sounds like you've got a very broad knowledge of pretty much everything that goes on behind the scenes. I mean, you're right at the top of this company. So a great addition to the panel today. Els is up next. Els, tell us about a bit about what you do. I'm sure there are people that are in chat that have probably watched you on YouTube and are fans of yours. But for those that maybe haven't, tell them a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, I started YouTube, I think it's coming up to 2.5 years ago now. So I predominantly do play video games on YouTube, but I also do like vlogs and other sort of fun challenges and stuff like that. Alongside that, I also do presenting as well. So I present for the Premier League, BBC, and also on radio and other stuff as well. So I've been doing that sort of 2.5 years now. So I'm reasonably early on in my YouTube career because I know there's people that have been doing it for like 10 years, but I'm here to give a perspective of how people can maybe start a YouTube channel and make it successful. So
I think it's a big one that people would like to kind of know what goes on. I think behind the scenes, especially, obviously we get all like the front facing stuff, but all the work that goes in behind that will be really, really insightful. Well, so we'll come to that a bit later on. Leia, tell us about what you do, because I mean, storylines and reporting on gaming and that kind of world, being a journalist almost, I mean, feels not perhaps a natural one that would first come to mind, but it does certainly feel like an important one. Oh, sorry, that's what Yinsu does. My bad. We'll go to Yinsu then and do those questions. Sorry, my fault, Leia.
That's all right. So I am an esports journalist, which is a little bit different from a games journalist. There is definitely a distinction. So I predominantly cover competitive games. So my games right now are Valorant, CSGO, League of Legends, and basically anything else. I've done FIFA in the past as well. But also as of pretty much last year when Valorant came out, I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with this game, but it's kind of the new FPS game that's come out. I'm now the host for the competitive Valorant scene in Europe. So I think some people might know me more from that, but I definitely haven't given up on my writing as well. So I like Alex, I'm kind of using my video brain and a little bit of my writing brain, sort of trying to combine that right now.
Nice. Okay, so then Leia, let's talk about the actual design of these games, because you're the person that kind of comes up with the storylines within them. How does it work for you, just briefly, with your role?
So for my role, it's a lot about we write as a writer's room. So it's sort of creating characters, creating storylines, and then creating the mechanic. Well, not creating, but sort of designing the mechanics of how you're going to move through the game. It is interactive fiction and it's narrative focused, so it's slightly different, I think, to how other people will work. But yeah, how we work is it's very much a writer's room. Come in, create characters, create storylines, and then create paths for a player to go through.
What kind of games have you been involved in?
Right, like of late, it's been interactive fiction on mobile. The most recent one that I'm working on is with a company called Fusebox, and actually our main IP is the Love Island game, which
I love the Love Island game.
You actually
Played a couple of times, I can't lie.
I feel I want to see receipts.
I'm not all rock and roll, Leia. Trust me on that one. Trust me.
It's quite different from the show in that because you play as if you're a contestant. There's a lot more depth to it in terms of the characterization and stuff. But yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Good. All right. So we've got a good idea of what each of our panelists have what each of our panelists do and what they have done in the past. Let's come back to Alex then and kind of talk through how you ended up where you are. We've mentioned that London Esports is quite a new franchise, Alex, and something that you're right at the top of. So how did you end up there? How did you end up and how was the journey?
Yeah, I think I have quite like I think like most people trying to in this industry have quite sort of unconventional routes in which they end up at their job. It's quite difficult to sort of, go to uni, graduate, and end up in like a grad scheme or something in this industry. It's a lot more sort of about trying to get experience and building personal networks and building your sort of skills and hopefully sort of being able to snowball of those things together. So I started way back in the day when I thought I could be a professional gamer one day. And I was playing in the UK scene in Counter-Strike. Actually, a lot of the people that Yinsu commentates over nowadays are on huge salaries competing at international tournaments I played with back in the day. But they were much better than me, basically. much better than me. So I gave up on that dream like fairly quickly and decided I had to do something else with my sort of knowledge and skills. And that transitioned me over into doing sort of more creative stuff and creating videos and creating written guides and posting stuff on social media about how to play these games better. And from there, it really became this sort of like passion to tell stories, I guess, in this industry. And that has always been something that I've wanted to do, is sort of tell stories around some of the sort of fantastic players and the amount of stress and challenges that they face on their journey to become the best. And so, yeah, I started doing that, and I worked with a very small team at the time. It was just me and a founder working out of our bedrooms with, no money and very big dreams. And over the course of sort of 2.5, 3 years, we managed to really push that whole business forwards. And it went from 2 of us to 30 of us. We went from working out of our bedrooms to working out of an office in Twickenham Rugby Stadium. And the whole thing really grew, and it was a sort of fantastic journey to be a part of. But then eventually I decided actually it was sort of time to veer off and go and do my own thing. And so that was about 18 months ago. And since then, I sort of freelance, and I do lots of bits and pieces with various people who are really interested in sort of getting into gaming, but aren't there yet. People like rugby clubs and football clubs, people like your sort of big sort of everyday name brands for food and drink, etc. And at that time, Alfie reached out to me, actually, who is the CEO of London Esports, and essentially was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. We should chat. And we spoke about it. And actually the first time we met, I sort of said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to try and do something else in the meantime. But we kept in contact and kept talking. And probably about 6 months later, we sort of picked up the conversation. And for me, one of the big things is like London Esports had this fantastic trajectory with lots of amazing people behind the scenes. And I realized actually it was something I couldn't miss out on, and that I really, really wanted to join sort of Alfie on this journey. And so, yeah, together we've been growing the business now for like 9 months or so. We've started to track interest from Premier League football clubs, from big tech incubators, from various sponsors. And it's just been a fantastic sort of journey.
Incredible.
Together.
Congratulations, Alex. That's an amazing journey you've been on so far. And I think over the last 1.5 years, it's not been great for everyone, but actually if there's probably one industry that has maybe profited from people's time and having a little bit more time, it's potentially the content creation and also the gaming industry. And the emphasis has really been put on it quite a lot. Do you think there is still an opportunity for people to get really creative with how they can influence and how they can get involved in this industry, almost like you have?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is like, there are no traditional routes into this industry. And so like, if you're expecting to be able to sign up with an email somewhere and get in, that's probably not going to happen. But actually, if you put yourself out there, and if you just sort of like, get involved in discussions on Twitter, like the great thing about Twitter is it connects everybody from the most, senior, biggest, influencers and CEOs all the way down to everybody at home. And so you can get in those conversations. And if you show that you have something to add, then you'll find a way in.
Nice. Els, let's talk about the content creation bit a little bit then, and how that works behind the scenes for you. I'm sure plenty of people within this chat and beyond have given it a go over the last year or so, but these things don't happen overnight. So what's the grind like? How much effort and time goes into this?
I think it's a lot more than what people would expect. Before I started YouTube, I prepared myself in a way, I guess, because I just didn't know anything, if I'm honest. Like, I didn't know much about YouTube. All I knew was I really liked gaming, and there was a gap in the market, in a sense, for a sort of commercial female presenter / gamer. So I just went into it blind. I taught myself how to edit and do the graphic design around my content, think about what sort of content I want to make, learn how it should look on camera, all the audio, the lighting, actually recording gameplay. So even to get a video, one video, for example, you do need to learn like a lot of different skills if you do want to do it yourself, which I would suggest to people if you were thinking about getting into YouTube, is try and learn it all yourself at first, because it's such a great skill to have, especially moving forward in maybe if you got other jobs which involved editing, for example, or graphic design, or just talking on camera, because a lot of my presenting opportunities have come as a result of doing the YouTube. So if we're going to talk through making one video, for example, I think it's thinking about what's popular at the moment. You should go on YouTube, look at the different trends, look at what games are popular, look at what content people really enjoy seeing. I think it's quite a good way to sort of get your video noticed. And then you have to actually sit down, record the content, which takes about an hour. I would say I'll give it an hour, but then the actual hard work comes in the edit. So that would take me around 1 or 2 days to edit one video. Then you've got to make a trailer for it. You've got to make a thumbnail. You've got to think about what title you're going to give the video, because ultimately what makes people click on a video is the title and the thumbnail. So those are kind of a really important factor for the video. They might take 5 minutes. It could take a few hours to think of a really good title and a thumbnail. So there is a lot of work behind the scenes that would result in a 10-minute video that people just absorb and then move on to the next one. So I think it's definitely worth preparing for hard work, but at the end of the day, if you enjoy it, then it's not really going to feel like work.
Absolutely. I can get behind that for sure. Leia, can I speak to you quickly on how you got into things? Because we were kind of talking about non-traditional routes with Alex there, but you were actually in banking beforehand, weren't you? Before you even got into what you're doing now. So, I mean, that's a completely different field to gaming. So how do you go from that to where you are now?
Yeah, it took a long time. Like I graduated many moons ago. So I actually did Latin and Greek at university and loved film. So banking was the anomaly. But I went into that and then had a mid-quarter life crisis, and then worked through, I was like, I want to do something creative. So then went to film school and then worked in that and editing, and then got to the point where I knew I wanted to write. And then I worked on various different kind of interactive things. And I always knew I wanted to write for games, but I didn't know how, like, to get in. It just didn't seem, I never see anybody that looks like me. I never really see anybody that even does the job. So I was just like, I have no idea. And so I did a master's at Central St. Martin's in dramatic writing. And it was really great because you could do a range of, you basically would learn about theatre, film, TV and digital media. So my focus was on games there. So put together a little portfolio that way, and then networked like it was going out of fashion, and eventually got here. But it took a long time. So I think the only lesson, I guess, is just don't stop, just keep going.
I think that's seems to be the common theme running through everyone. Don't ever stop, just keep grinding through, keep going over those hurdles and breaking down the boundaries. I mean, what were some of those boundaries and hurdles that you had to overcome, Leia?
It's just not knowing anybody or not knowing how it works. I think people are quite lucky now in that, as Alex said, you can go through Twitter, you can look at Twitch, LinkedIn is actually really brilliant. You can find people or whatever and try and connect to them. But it took so long, and I just I didn't know how to connect to people or speak to them, and that's seemed to be how people, in fact, kind of in a roundabout way, is how I got my job, even though I was applying for stuff. So the biggest barrier was seeing myself in rooms that I didn't see other people that look like me in. Seeing myself, I had to imagine myself there and therefore give myself the permission almost to go like, no, I should do this and go for it. And I know it sounds really trite and it sounds very oh, you know, easy, you know, you can just say that, but it truly is just about, I think exactly what Alex said, putting yourself out there, and the barrier to that for me was just feeling like potentially I didn't belong there. That was honestly the biggest one. After that, after I became shameless, I was like, no, I'm getting in, whatever. But
Good.
Things kind of fell into place.
Great. That's so good for you. And the fact that you've gone and done that is going to give so many others the inspiration and drive to go and do it, because they now see themselves there as well, which is really good, Leia. Yinsu, can we speak about the kind of aspects of the journalism industry that perhaps you wish could be better, do you think? And the places where you think people might come and stumble on?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Leia and I are like twins, because I also did Greek and classics at uni, and then I switched to film, and then after film I was like,
so
been it all, got my NCTJ, and the rest is history. Nice. But I actually came from football journalism, so my understanding of journalism is very, very different from the traditional, I'd say, gaming and esports journalists. So I'd say that out of everyone I have ever worked with or spoken to in gaming and esports, I would probably be one of maybe 3 people that actually have an NCTJ, which is crazy, right? Because if you want to be a journalist in the UK, for those of you that are kind of considering this, that's something that people kind of push you to do. Like, you need this qualification. And I feel a bit blessed that I did end up doing it, because kind of circling back to what you were saying, the things in esports and gaming journalism I wish were a bit different, it does come down sometimes to professionalism. I think the best thing and the worst thing about gaming, people that work in gaming, is that they're fans. So you don't ever sort of turn into this career if you're not a fan of esports or not a fan of games, because that's just like, it's like sports, right? You're not gonna go and work for a football club if you aren't into football. But I think that comes into 2 ways, because if you're a fan of sports, sometimes I think you can lose yourself a little bit and kind of forget the professional side to things. Like, you're here for a job, you're not a fan, you're here to kind of do something that you're being paid for. And I think there's been instances we've seen, maybe people not kind of acting professionally, and that has affected us as a whole sometimes as an industry, because from the outside, not that people actually care in gaming, like I know everybody gets asked this question, like, oh, what do you think about the mainstream? Or like, as esports people, oh, do you think like it should be in the Olympics? Or do you care that people don't think this is a real sport? We do not care. Like, not one person care about that. Stop asking us. We don't care what the mainstream thinks. Like, you do you. But I do think that does impact us, because at the end of the day, if people kind of still see us as like a niche, or still see this as like a Zoomer thing, I guess, is that what the kids are saying these days? But we're always gonna kind of like, other people are already putting hurdles for us. There's no need for us to kind of do that to ourselves. So for me, I do feel like on the whole, like, more professionalism would be great. But at the same time, I think it does give us a bit of an edge that, like Alex said, like, you don't need a degree to be here. I didn't need an NCTJ to get here. Like, you know, as a presenter, I'm sure Els would agree, like, you don't need a qualification to become a presenter or do YouTube. Like, this is not needed for you. In some areas of esports and gaming, I think maybe it is needed, like just on the technical side, but turning your passion into something that's a career is great. But I do think we have to kind of stay humble and realize we do have to be professionals if we want everybody to kind of progress.
That's an interesting point, I think, because I had someone tell me that the gaming industry is actually bigger than the film industry worldwide. Like, it's insane how big it is. Yet it still feels like such perhaps maybe like an afterthought, or, you know, it's always on the back foot in conversations and things like that sometimes. And that blows my mind. So, Els, why do you think perhaps that is? Like, is it trying to perhaps, you know, these kids that are in here now, like, they're perhaps going to need to convince their mums, their dads, that they want to go and do this. They want to just start up and be a YouTuber, or, you know, go and be a journalist, or whatever it is. How do they do that? What's the best way?
I think there's a generational gap in well, I've experienced it anyway. So up until about 3 years ago, I worked for IBM. So I was doing computing. I got a degree. Like I did nothing to do with creative industry. I was working a 9 to 5 in an office. And sorry, I just got packaged. It was really loud. I had to, I didn't convince my parents because I'm an adult, like I can make my own decisions, but there was that sort of gap in understanding when I quit my job, trying to explain to my parents, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to be self-employed and do something creative. And at this point, I didn't know that I wanted to do YouTube or presenting. So I just kind of quit and just went out on a limb. And then later on, when I came up with the idea of doing YouTube, I had to sort of sit my parents down and explain what YouTube was, what gaming was. They knew what it was because I always loved gaming, but they associated gaming with me sitting in my room for hours on end with the curtains closed. That's what they thought it was. So I think
I do.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there was definitely a period of trying to educate my parents, and maybe people that are viewing might have to do the same thing. But I do think the good thing now is, especially with lockdown, I think it's sort of changed people's views, or started to change people's views on the potential, especially with the rise of esports. I think a lot of people are learning more about esports now, and that it's a proper sport. It's very serious. There's different esports teams, there's training camps, there's coaches, there's $1 million industry that are invested in this. And I think that as time goes by, it's going to be easier, because I think there will be that more media coverage around gaming and esports and YouTube and Twitch and streaming and everything. I just think it will take time, but there is material out there to kind of educate maybe your parents and give them examples of other YouTubers. You can use me if you want, because literally 3 years ago I worked in an office and now I'm doing something completely different. So
let's go, Elves. Come on. We love that. All right. So we're going to jump into the questions in a sec, because we got quite a few of them, but I'd quite like to get just a final piece of advice from everyone, you know, for these people out there who want to get into the industry from your own positions. What would be the outstanding piece of advice that you would give to them in how they can get started? Alex, I'll come to you first.
I think the biggest thing is start creating, start making things and start putting yourself out there. Like whatever you're doing, whether it's music or graphics or video or art, like start making and start putting out on social media and start having those conversations with people, because often the sort of demons stopping you doing that are really more internal than sort of external.
Okay, nice. Leia, how about you?
I would agree on that, about fighting the demons, but kind of going off El's point of trying to convince the people that support you in your life of what you're going forward. My biggest piece of advice is to try to find a community, try to find a tribe, peers, people who are at your level too, because there's nothing like it. I agree, you don't need a degree, but the one good thing for the masters that I did was finding another group of people who were like trying to create work and had similar ambitions and things like that. When other people maybe won't support you and you need more an internal engine, you need a group, you need a tribe, you need a group of people who, again, like are on your level, who you can all grow with. So truly just try and seek that out is what I would advise you. I
can really get behind that point. I think that's a really, really important one, because I think on the come up, sometimes you're around people that they may want to pull you down. They may want to get in your way. They may be jealous, or, you know, just leeching off you in some way. It's just so important to discard that energy as fast as you can and just focus on the right people around you. So Leia, I think that's such a good point. I'd really love to hammer that one home. Yinsu, what about you?
I have 2 pieces of advice. First is try everything. Like, honestly, try everything. You never know what you're going to be into. So like I said, I started in football. I wanted to be like a football writer and a reporter so badly. And I did that for 5 years. And when I got into gaming, I was like, I actually enjoy this more. And then I did the backwards thing of like doing football first and then gaming. And then even into gaming and esports, there are so many jobs. Like, we have a pretty diverse panel here, but there's like a ridiculous amount of jobs you can do. Like, you can be a literal commentator if that's what you're into. It doesn't just have to be like a presenter or a host like myself. You can be an analyst. You know, like the best analogies I could give is like, if you look at a football panel, you've got like presenters, you've got analysts, you've got producers, exactly the same in esports and gaming. And On the more technical side, you can be like a producer, you can be an observer, you can be like quite literally like a coach, a manager of a team. There are so many things to do, and there's so much more to it than just like the faces you see and the pro players you see. So if you really get an opportunity, I'd honestly just say yes to everything at least once. Try it. You never know what you're going to like, what you don't like. And the second piece of advice is be forgiving to yourself and about yourself, because you're going to make so many mistakes. Like if I could count the amount of mistakes I've made, and I'm like a very anxious person, I'd make a mistake and be like, okay, that's my life over. Like, what's the point of getting out of bed? Like, I'm done. But you're going to make those mistakes so many times. People could, call you out for it, or it might just be like a small thing, but just be super, super forgiving, because everyone else is really in the same boat as you, and don't lose motivation because of it.
Oh my God, this panel's amazing. So much good advice. Els, no pressure. What's yours?
Okay. But you know what, when we were going through all of those, I was just thinking how much I relate to every single point.
Nice.
I would say, okay, quickly. First one is be yourself, especially if you're doing something like presenting or being on camera and doing YouTube, Twitch streaming, things like that. You have to be yourself, because you can only fake it for so long. Don't watch what someone else is doing and how they present or how they are on camera and what they're doing, because then you just end up imitating someone. And it's so satisfying when you sort of gain an audience and they connect to you as a person, because it's like, oh, I'm just here and I'm just being me, and you can connect with people because of that. And it's like a really nice feeling. So definitely be yourself. And the second one is be consistent. Don't look at numbers, because everyone for some reason seems to care about subscribers and views and followers. And if you're looking at it like that, it's going to be so soul draining, because not every video is going to get views. You're not going to get subscribers overnight. It's a gradual process. And the main thing for me for the first sort of 6 to 12 months of doing YouTube was that I posted a video twice a week without fail, even if it didn't get as many views as I liked. Some videos I would have spent so long, like a Sims build, if I was building a house in the Sims, spent 2 days making it for it to get not many views. And it's not a nice feeling. But now I'm so glad that I just stuck at it, because you could be doing something for 2 years and in the third year you could make it, for example. But if you gave up, then you would never know. So be consistent 100%.
All this advice has been absolutely incredible, guys. I hope it's really helping you out there. We're going to go on to the questions now. Els, I actually just wanted to quickly ask you one thing, and I'm sorry if this is a question that's in the list. I haven't managed to look through them yet, but just on the equipment side of things, like,
yes,
not everyone out there is going to be able to afford like incredible equipment and stuff like that. Like, how do people get started, and what would you suggest is maybe the best place to start in that sense?
I think a lot of people watch these big YouTubers who have got all this amazing equipment, and they know all about the lighting and the cameras, and often they have a camera guy and an editor. So it's not achievable to do it straight away anyway, despite sort of the finances behind it. But I do think that it's best to just start authentic. If you don't necessarily have the budget to get a big gaming PC and a really good sort of DSLR camera, then just get a webcam and a cheap microphone, use your laptop, and just go from there. Nowadays, you can record on your PlayStation, for example. You don't necessarily need a big piece of equipment to capture the gaming content. And just try it, because as Alex said, just start creating. I think that we all look at other people's content and think, oh, I'm never going to be able to do that, or I'm never going to be able to afford this type of equipment. And I think as long as you have the basics and you have a camera and a computer and you can edit and upload, then just go for it, because it's better to have content out there than to have nothing. So yeah.
If you want to do it, you will find a way. All right. Nice. Thank you, Els. Okay, so let's do these questions then. Yinsu, I think this one might be for you first off. This is from Kyle Moffat. Big up, Kyle, for hanging out today. Where are the best places to build your presence as a gaming writer?
That's a very, very good question, because fortunately now, in comparison to when I first started a few years ago, there's a lot more places where you can do that. I think you need to identify what you want to write about first and foremost. So if you want to be a AAA writer, an indie writer, or an esports writer, because they're very, very different. It's honestly like the equivalent of like if you want to write about golf or you want to write about netball. Like, they're different things, and there's going to be different places for that. I think esports is probably what I'm more knowledgeable about, and I think esports is also a lot about reporting and going to events and kind of telling stories about, you know, the competition and the pros and behind the scenes and orgs and all that jazz. So you have to be very in tune and knowledgeable with what's going on in said esport that you like, whether that's like League of Legends or Counter-Strike or anything like that. But games, on the other hand, I think you also have to have a very good knowledge. But at least from my personal experience, a lot of that is going to be your personal opinion. You can have a little bit more fun with it. So you can be someone that reviews about games. You can be someone that writes guides. You can be someone that writes more about like releases or maybe even indie stuff, in which case, like I said, that's more of like kind of providing information and your own opinion. And because there's such a big distinction between these two things, there's going to be different places online where you can kind of look to. For esports, I would honestly find the editor of the websites that you enjoy reading. There is no point writing for somewhere that you don't even know the content of. That's like one of the biggest mistakes, I would say. And the editors will see right through you. Like if they'll know that you don't actually consume their content, and why would they want to bring someone on that doesn't know much about them? So I'd honestly just go to the editors of your favorite gaming websites or esports news outlets, find the editors on Twitter. They'd usually have their DMs open, or just get an email address on LinkedIn and then just message them, send over a portfolio. I'd say unless your writing is like atrocious and you completely miss the mark, most of those editors will want to respond to you, because a lot of the gaming industry is still made up of freelancers. And I think that's the best way to start. Like, you being a freelancer is probably the easiest way, because you can kind of dip your feet into different kind of ponds and see what you like and don't like. But I say that's probably the most straightforward route for you guys.
Nice. Okay, this is, apologies if I don't pronounce your name correctly, either Funmi or Funmi. And Alex, I'll come to you first, and then Els, I think you might be able to pitch in on this one as well. In terms of content creating, would you suggest becoming a Twitch streamer instead of a gaming YouTuber, or do both?
So like from a sort of boring standpoint, Twitch is very top heavy as a whole. So it's very hard, like the sort of top, 0.0001% of Twitch streamers command like 99.9% of the audience on Twitch. And there's no sort of natural ways in which Twitch streamers get pushed out to new viewers. Whereas on a platform like YouTube, one of the great things is if you create content that is really good, YouTube will push it out to more people, and it doesn't matter how many people follow you. And so like my personal view is I would always recommend people to sort of lean into these platforms that push your content out to more people. So things like TikTok are great, YouTube is great, Twitter can be really, really powerful sometimes in that sort of realm. And I would focus on those when you're starting off. And then as you get bigger, that's when you want to sort of pull people closer and make them a bigger fan of yours. And that's when things like the live interaction of Twitch, things like Discord can be really, really powerful, because at that point, you now really want people to love you rather than just like you.
I've had quite a good experience in that kind of respect during lockdown, and I started a Discord channel right at the beginning, and we're now on 1,700 members, which is an amazing growth, and it's been so rewarding. And then once you've got that all set up, how about like engaging those people continually and keeping them fed? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the best way to do that, do you think?
Yeah, I think as you grow, as one of the things that Els pointed out, is that you will start to bring on people that will help you keep the sort of the everyday normal things ticking along, things like TikTok and YouTube that are sort of driving your growth. And at that point, it's really about sort of building a community and really starting to sort of almost build like one-on-one personal relationships with those people that are most interested in you. And that's one of the things that Twitch and Discord really, really excel at, because you're live and you're able to interact with people and ask them how their day was. And, they were going to complete this mission in a video game yesterday evening. Did they manage to do it? Did it go well? Did it not go well, etc.? And I think when you start to build those relationships, that's where you really sort of foster that sense of community.
Nice. So Els, I'll slightly change the question a little bit and talking about that almost like regurgitating of content, right? So you make something on YouTube, but you want to reach bigger people. You want to drive people to that video. So you making clips and stuff to put out on Twitter and TikTok and stuff like that. Is it as simple as like literally just taking the clip and putting it on there, or is there a bit more work that goes into it?
No. So I tend to do like a 1 minute trailer for each YouTube video. Well, at least at the start I would make sure every single YouTube video that came out, I had a highlights reel of the video. And they actually take the longest, I think, to create, because you have to go through the video, pick out the parts which you think are the most entertaining and that other people would think are the most entertaining, and make it into something that makes someone want to go and click and watch the full video. And it's quite hard to do because you're just sat sort of by yourself in your room thinking, okay, will people find that funny? I find it funny. Will they find it funny? So I think it's really important, actually. And one piece of advice someone gave me quite early on was to share everywhere. It doesn't matter if you've posted something on a teaser clip on Instagram. People on Twitter might not see the Instagram clip. So post the same thing onto Twitter, and then post the same thing onto TikTok. And if you have Facebook, for example, then post it on there. Post all of your video links onto Discord if you have a Discord channel. If you're going live on Twitch, then mention that you've got a new YouTube video that's live, for example. I don't think there's such a thing as overkill on social media. I think you have to kind of make sure that all your audience is going to find this content. And also, when things go viral, it could happen off one of your videos. So sharing it in as many different social media apps as possible is key, because someone could pick it up and it could go viral, and then it's all like a waterfall effect. That's the word I was going for.
Bit of cross-pollinating. All right. Yeah. Perfect. This next question is unnamed, but I think it's quite a good question. Leia, you might be on this one. Where can we go to get experience or a foot in the door inside the games industry? I'm looking to be a 3D modeler, but I would like help in knowing where to go for an apprenticeship, internship, work experience, or a job. What would you say, Leia?
Just real quick, if you're a 3D modeler, like you're going to be living in esports, like you're going to do very well. Sorry, Leia, go on.
That's right.
You take it, Yinsu.
Oh no, that's all I was going to say. Like I saw a question about editing as well. Like if you're a good editor, 3D modeler, all of those kind of stuff, people will pick up on it on Twitter. This is something I think esports orgs explicitly look for all the time. Definitely encourage you guys to go check out One Up Studios. They're these guys who kind of started their own studio. They're producers, editors, cameramen, and all that jazz. And they've been producing a lot of Team Liquid stuff, and they're incredible. And one of the guys on the team is a 3D modeler, and in the Valorant scene, he's like well known now because he's made these 3D models for Team Liquid, and they were insane. And I think that's one of the things I would say that people look for the most on social media: graphic designers and editors. Like if you are a good graphic designer, like Alex and I both know a couple people, and if you're a good editor, like you will get jobs like consistently, because that's the kind of thing that people constantly look for, I would say, probably more than anything else, at least to my experience.
It's kind of crazy because I've been watching a lot of Twitch over lockdown, and like I'm just gonna use Tim the Tapman as an example, right? His editor Whips, right? He's like a personality in himself because of the work that he does for Tim. And so you can almost, be a 3D modeler or whatever it is, an editor, and still be a personality. And that to me seems like a really good way to grow your career as well. And kind of, if you feel like you can do both, definitely do that, right, Yinsu?
Yeah, I'd say if you're an editor and if you're remotely interested in esports, make a frag movie. Like if you make a frag movie and it gets picked up on YouTube or Twitter, I know like a lot of people I know that got their jobs now as like kind of full-time editors came up through frag movies. It's the same as being a YouTuber. Like if you have content, you don't have to be in front of a camera to make content. Like if you just like editing, take one of your favorite streamers and take a bunch of their like highlights from their stream and make a really good highlight, a reel or a frag movie, post onto YouTube and social media. It pops off a lot. I remember seeing one of the frag movies a couple years ago, this guy did on Counter-Strike, and it was just so good. And everybody in the community loved it so much. I'm pretty sure the guy who's currently behind it is now editing for a lot of the biggest players and also orgs as well. You just got to basically play to your strengths, and then make sure that you get as many eyeballs on whatever it is you want to do as possible on social, and you'll probably have a pretty good chance if you keep at it.
Is a frag movie like a montage reel, like a highlights reel?
How do I explain frag movie, Alex? It's like Yeah, Alex, you explain this.
Really, really over the top montage.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
I remember them from like
Dramatic.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Like,
Yeah.
Like 1080 no scopes and all that kind of stuff with like dramatic music and like crazy effects on them. And all that.
Are there any like really good ones that you would recommend people go seek out to sort of get inspiration from?
There's one actually for a game that's not even FPS, that's like a League of Legends one, which is made by a community of people online who all play basically the same character, and they all got their best bits together. I think it was on a Discord server or a Reddit, and they basically one of them was a really good editor and took all their best bits, like from all these, like, you know, they're from all across the world, all just love playing this character and are really good at it. And this one editor brought them all together and made a really cool frag movie called Kazakh's Mains on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
it's
I was wondering what you were getting at. Yeah, definitely check that out. And I think check out anything made by One Up Studios on YouTube or Twitter. Any of the Team Liquid stuff they do, it's very, very impressive.
Nice, thanks Yinsu, thanks Alex,
Right.
thanks Leia. Els, this is from Aaron. Aaron says, how did you manage to migrate? I think it's a really good question. How did you manage to migrate from YouTube content creation into presenting on places like the BBC and another, I guess, mainstream broadcasters? How did you manage to do that?
That's actually a good question. I do get asked this a lot. So thanks, Aaron. I think it's similar to what Yinsu said earlier in her advice, in the fact that just say yes to everything. So I was doing radio presenting around the same time when I started YouTube. I just had like a talk show once a week, and I kind of was half toying with the fact that I wanted to do presenting. So I was like, okay, cool. If something comes my way, I'll try it. And as soon as I started uploading on YouTube, sort of 2-3 months in, I started getting approached by different companies that were looking to get into gaming, because I think within the past sort of 2 or 3 years, a lot of companies are now looking at gaming and thinking, oh, I want to kind of get into that industry. So a couple of companies messaged me. And then in the June time, so about 5 months into my YouTube, I got approached by the FIFA eWorld Cup. And that's obviously one of the biggest, well, if not the biggest FIFA competition in the year, with people from all around the world. And they wanted me to do like a 1-minute segment on stage. So I had never presented on stage before in my life. I'd never done live presenting. I'd never done it with a cue on the ear where people are talking at you whilst you're presenting. And I sort of said to my manager, I was like, oh, I don't know if I should do this because I've never done it before. I don't have the experience. And he said to me, he was like, you could say no, or you could say yes and just pretend like you know what you're doing and take the leap of faith. And when I was 18, I had this, I can't remember who it was who gave me this piece of advice, but I was going through a lot. Like I was quite anxious. I nearly didn't go to uni. And someone said, if you don't do something, you're forever going to be sort of fearful of that scenario. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm not going to say no. I'm just going to do it. And I did the 1 minute on stage on Sky Sports. It was on Twitch as well. I don't even know how many people were watching, but I did it and it went quite well. And then there was someone in the Premier League in the audience, from the Premier League in the audience, who emailed me a few weeks later and was like, do you want to come in to do a green screen test for a new show that we're doing? So I went and did that. And then I started working for the Premier League. And then from that, it's been sort of BBC Sport, Match of the Day X. I did the E-Champions League a few weeks ago. So it really just came from taking that leap of faith and just knowing that if I really want to do something, then I'm just going to put my mind to it and do it. So I definitely would recommend just saying yes.
So not bottling out when the big moment comes, knowing when that is and really taking that leap of faith. But actually, even before that, essentially, you know, your content shined through. You know, that was essentially the very first thing that got you the opportunity. People are active all over these channels. So as long as your content is good enough, hopefully it gets picked up as well. Fingers crossed. Nice. Thanks, Els. Okay, so Alex, this one's for you next. Unnamed, but is it a good idea to start your own amateur esports organization as part of a portfolio if you want to join more established organizations?
I used to think no, but more recently I've realized it's much more impressive to see people who've built things for themselves and, like, you know, done things that are risky and that there's no sort of guarantee of things working out, and actually getting small wins there rather than sort of joining something that's already massive and got loads of steam and is sort of going on to be successful. Partly because if you make any mistakes, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, it's just you and your small little organization. So if you make a mistake, it's not like there's a boss who's going to get angry at you, or you're going to, you know, like, it's just you doing stuff. So it's a great opportunity to learn. But I also think if something successful does come out of it, then that success is, you know, 100x what it would be in any other situation, because you have literally turned sort of nothing into something. So I would always encourage people to sort of like, you know, I think an amateur esports organization is a very sort of like typical project that people undertake in that regard. Whereas in fact, like, maybe look at like other things that are maybe sort of less typical. Like, why don't you start, you know, a creative studio, or why don't you try and start, you know, making some indie games with some friends, or why don't you start, you know, writing your own news blog with a couple friends? Like, I think starting things is fantastic. And it's more about just trying to sort of decide which thing is the right thing to start for you.
Nice. This is from another Ben. And Leia, I'll come to you on this one. Ben says, I love gaming and I'm really keen to start streaming and getting involved in various other different areas, but my confidence isn't my greatest quality. What's the best way to build that confidence to do what I want to do?
Yeah, I think Els has already kind of covered it with the whole, you just have to, I was about to make a reference to an Indiana Jones movie where he's like steps out and there's nothing there. He just has to believe that there's something there to get to the other side. I can't remember which one it was. But the thing with confidence is that no one really has it. Really, you just fake it until it comes, and then you're like, oh, okay, I can do this thing, and you have confidence in the skills and the foundation you've built. But what I'm hearing is just, you need to, similarly to what we said before, like have somebody or figure out a support system that will push you to do the things that you're afraid to do, in the same way Elle's manager was like, look, you regret the things you don't do, you never regret the things you do, really. So yeah, if you don't have that, I'll do it. Just start. Like, honestly, just think about what the worst thing that could happen is. And if it's not someone passing away, you're good. Just start and keep going. And it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. But just I think the only thing is, you have everything you need in terms of passion and interest and all of that. You just have to go on and do it. So I will tell you, you can do it. Go on, Ben.
Nice. Let's go, Leia. Perfect. And actually, I'll stay with Leia on this one as well, because we haven't really had a question around this, and I think it's important. What are the best resources or tools for practicing narrative design?
So there's Twine and there's Itch.io as well, where you can practice sort of writing interactive fiction and seeing how you can essentially, yeah, design a narrative, and you can create like visual novels and things like that, practicing in that way. So, and then the best thing actually is to get people to play them and give you feedback as to, you know, if there were enough choices, did it feel impactful if you were able to do this, that, and the other. Get people who love you but who are very honest with you to give you feedback so that it's constructive, as opposed to your mom. Like my mom would be like, I don't understand it, but I love it. And like, Mama, I can't do anything with that. So yeah, get people who you trust and who will give you really good feedback. But yeah, those two are the really, really simple, quick to get up on to start narrative designing.
Yeah, I think when you start, sometimes, this probably isn't true for everyone, but I found anyway, my parents were the worst people to ask, because they were like, you're amazing, you're doing great, darling, you're doing brilliant all the time. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, no, mum, that's not what I want you to tell me. I'm rubbish. I tell me I suck at this, all right, and how I can get better.
No, yeah, I mean, it's a balance, isn't it? You were saying about protecting your energy, and if you are, as I am, particularly sensitive and particularly anxious and whatever, it's so difficult to get feedback in a way that's constructive. So you want people to be very specific, identify people who can be constructive, and it may not be, as I've said before, it may not be people you already know. You're so unspeakably lucky to be starting now, literally right now, in the way that people are hungry to connect and create community and form relationships. So reach out and try to find a group of people who will give you that feedback and who you like and you trust and things. I've totally lost the beginning of that question.
I think you smashed it, to be honest. I think you done it. Nice. Thank you, Leia.
I just want to really quickly add about
go
mentors as well, because I have a couple of people who've been my mentors for, I'd say, over the past like at least a year, maybe 2 years, that I'd always consult with, like if I feel like I'm not sure about the decisions I'm making or just about my writing, whether that's like an editor or a friend, or I mean, once you kind of like enter the gaming and esports industry, like you're one of us, like we'll look after you. And I definitely felt that way. Like once I got into it, because I do have a lot of people that DM me too, like asking for advice, or like they want me to look over their show reel or whatever. Although I can't answer to like every single one of them, but if you're someone who's like trying really hard and you are a little bit lost, or you don't have like that group that Leia was saying, that you don't have friends who are into gaming, or you don't have kind of like a mentor figure, I definitely think it's a good idea to find one, especially someone whose work that you like, and that you kind of want to emulate. But yeah, if anyone wants to DM me about that kind of stuff, feel free. Yeah.
You wished it upon yourself, Yinsu.
Really quickly, who you would DM. I really want to hammer home what Yinsu said. Like, don't scattergun approach it. Really understand, why do you like the person who you're going to reach out to? What is it they've made that you think? Because ultimately, like, you need to feed you. So if you get connected to someone who's really helpful and whatever, but it's not really, it's something that's in tune with, sorry Jack, you started it, but in tune with your energy.
No, I think it's important. Go on.
I was just going to be very woo woo and be like, yeah, if they're not in tune with your energy, it really does affect the speed with which you can progress. So don't just be grateful that anybody would respond to you. Really make conscious decisions as to how does people behave that you actually want to emulate, because it's super, super, super important.
Nice.
That's something that took me an age to learn, so I just want to give you that. Like, I'll save you 5 years.
I think it's good, Leia. I think it's good because I mean, I know this isn't necessarily related to game, but it's within the same thing. Like when it comes to music, I get endless DMs about music, and I have so many people that come to me going, "I'm the best artist that you've never heard. Play my music." Like, that's not the way to approach someone. The way you should probably approach someone is, "Hey, do you want to like go and grab a drink? Because I'm really interested in what you do," and you know, that kind of thing. And making those relationships is the first and foremost thing that you should absolutely do.
Okay, that was also what I was going to say, is another piece of advice from my mother is to network before you need to. And so people really dislike being asked for things or being obligated to like look at things or give you stuff, but man, do they like talking about themselves. So,
is that because I started talking about myself? Is that why you remembered?
No comment. But no, I was not at all.
Okay.
But I am saying to you that, yeah, for the price of a Pret coffee, just be like, I'll buy you a coffee. I will come to you. I will Zoom when you're available, and just ask someone to get their thing and build a relationship. The biggest thing, if there's nothing else you take away from this, is build relationships, because that will sustain you. So yeah.
And you can expense the Pret coffee as well, because it was a business expense, you know, so don't forget that.
Just to be annoying, wait, can I add one
go on,
thing
Alex.
to that?
I'm going to come to you as well, Alex, with one more question. So
okay, cool. I was just going to add to that, the most useful word in your vocabulary is thank you. And like, all of these people want to help you, and they will help you, but please say thank you, because it goes so far. Yeah,
just being a polite human being. Nice. So we've literally got a couple of minutes, Alex, but I really want to ask you this. What about opportunities around the UK, or is everything London based? How many outside of London, if at all?
Great thing about esports, loads of remote work, like loads of remote work. You know, I'm sort of slowly growing my own sort of thing at the moment, and everybody works fully remote. And, you know, we have aspirations of this year opening something not remote, which will be very exciting, and we'll talk about that when that comes to it. But you know, there's so many opportunities to work remotely. I'll just get stuck in. I think the most impactful thing you can do about being somewhere is going to events, and possibly for your first couple of events, you're probably going to have to sort of, you know, sleep in a friend's car and get a lift from somebody and buy your own ticket. And, you know, I slept under desks for literally my first 2 or 3 events just to get there and be able to afford to get there, basically. But, you know, that's potentially the only time you really need to be there in person. But like day to day, you'll be absolutely fine working remotely. And there's lots of opportunities like up and down the country. Like I heard about Silicon Slough recently. So if they're calling it Silicon Slough for some sort of gaming opportunities, then wherever you are, there will be opportunities, basically.
Is that meant to be like Silicon Valley?
Yeah.
Wow, Slough is not that glamorous. I've been there before. It's a nice place though. It's okay. Sorry if anyone's from Slough. I didn't mean it like that. Okay, right. Guys, thank you so much. Look, this has been amazing and I think incredibly helpful for everyone as well. Els, Alex, Leia, Yinsu, can I get some fire in the chat for the guys who hung out with us tonight, please, or this afternoon rather, for the gaming careers? I'll clap because I'm the only one that can. But I'm clapping for the other 200 people in chat right now. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for hanging out, people. Don't forget Radio 1 website if you want to go to any more of these at all. There's film, TV, there is journalism, there is various other things on there. Big weekend of opportunities is quite literally that. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.